I watched the jury's eyes widen as my husband laid out my handwritten letters on the polished oak bench. I stood frozen, every heartbeat echoing in my skull. How did my words betray me? The sterile scent of courtroom air, mixed with the low hum of fluorescent lights, pressed down on my shoulders. I could feel my palms grow slick against the fabric of my blouse. Then he spoke, voice steady. These letters prove her love was never in question. Whispers rippled through the room, and I realized they truly doubted me, until he revealed the words I poured onto paper in the cover of night. I swallowed hard, throat dry. Is this really happening? My lawyer's gloved hand hovered over my file, as the judge's gavel glinted under the spotlight. Outside the glass partitions, my sister's face blurred with tears. This wasn't just a trial of facts, it was a trial of my heart. Every doubt I'd buried, every suspicion I'd ignored, now hung in the balance. And then, the prosecutor leaned forward, eyes narrowing. What will they do next? I remember the first time I met my husband, Daniel. I was a marketing executive at a boutique firm in downtown Seattle, juggling client pitches and late-night brainstorming sessions. I thrived on structure, color-coded calendars, spreadsheets that tracked every deadline, and neatly pressed suits that announced my professionalism before I spoke. I lived for that rhythm, the click-clack of my heels in marble hallways, the steady glow of my laptop at 2 a.m., the crisp taste of my morning Americano. I believed I had life all figured out. I grew up the oldest of 3 siblings. My mother taught me to value loyalty above all else. My father taught me to never back down from a challenge. I carried those lessons like armor. When Daniel entered my life, with his easy laugh and midnight blue eyes, I thought I'd found my perfect partner in both work and love. He was a software architect, precise, logical, and always calm under pressure. We fit together like puzzle, pieces I never knew were missing. I can still picture our first apartment. Soft gray walls, a single orchid on the windowsill, sunlight filtering through sheer curtains. I'd wake before dawn to write my daily gratitude list. I am loved. I am secure. Then I'd slip into my blazer and heels while Daniel brewed coffee in boxers, humming the same tune every morning. We'd drive him to the train station, hand in hand, and talk about our goals, my upcoming promotion, his next big coding milestone. Weekends were our sanctuary. I'd cook lemon garlic chicken, and he'd put on jazz records that filled the living room with saxophone echoes. I'd read aloud from my favorite novels while he sketched circuit diagrams at our small oak table. Life was a gentle waltz. When we learned I was pregnant, our joy felt boundless. The quickening flutter in my belly, the hopeful sparkle in Daniel's eyes as he read parenting books in bed. We painted the nursery mint green and filled it with soft toys and storybooks. At 9 months, I gave birth to our daughter, Willow. Even in those first sleepless weeks, I felt empowered. I am her protector. I balanced nursing sessions with conference calls, sending status updates between feedings. I'd whisper to her in the dim glow of the baby monitor, "Mommy loves you," more than anything. Daniel would stroke my hair as I dozed, promising that our family was unbreakable. I thought I knew love. I thought I knew security. I thought I knew myself. Then life shifted. My day-to-day routine splintered into fragmented moments. Scramble for daycare drop-off. Log into my work VPN from daycare's lobby. Rush to pick up a cranky toddler. Soothe her tantrums as I pitched new ad campaigns. I felt the strain. Yet every night, Daniel greeted me at the door with a tired but warm smile. "You did great today." Behind closed doors, though, I noticed small cracks. A frown when I mentioned a work win. A dismissive shrug when I asked about his day. Is something wrong? I chalked it up to exhaustion. After all, we were new parents. We were tired. I was responsible for both my career and my family. But still, I couldn't shake a growing unease. In my journal, I wrote, "I want to believe in us. I need to believe in us." I scribbled pages of questions I feared to voice aloud. Then I'd cross them out before Daniel saw them. I clung to the memories of our early days, our laughter, our shared dreams, our unspoken promises. I convinced myself that love should weather any storm. Everything felt normal, too normal almost. What was I missing? And then, one ordinary Tuesday morning, my daughter asked me something that changed everything. I noticed it first in the way Daniel's smile felt strained, as though he were performing a role rather than sharing a moment. I sat at the kitchen table, cradling a lukewarm cup of tea, while he tapped furiously on his laptop. I thought it was just stress. Then he looked up. "You're overreacting," he said, voice low. "It's just work." I nodded, but the tight line of his jaw didn't match his words. I began to keep track of those moments in my journal, though I wrote them in coded shorthand. He said, "I'm imagining things." I scribbled until my hand cramped. I remembered our early years when every glance between us spoke volumes. What happened to that? I watched him grow quiet at dinner, eating mechanically as I peppered him with questions about his day. "Fine," he'd reply, eyes never meeting mine. I forced a laugh and changed the subject. I don't want to fight, yet a dull ache settled in my chest, like the echo of a warning bell. I told myself these were mere hiccups in a busy life. I reminded myself of our daughter's laughter, of his gentle praise when I managed to ship a campaign on time. He still cares. But then came the small criticisms. I caught him saying, "Do you really need another project? Don't you think you're spreading yourself too thin?" His tone was casual, almost helpful, but the underlying message was clear. I should step back. I felt myself shrink. I stopped bringing up new ideas at work. I canceled lunch meetings with colleagues. I began to wear simpler outfits, the black pants and gray tees Daniel said he preferred. I am not bold anymore. The mornings lost their spark. I moved through them on autopilot, and then I found the first note. I was folding Willow's tiny socks when I noticed a scrap of paper tucked under the nursery dresser. I unfolded it with trembling fingers. "You're too emotional. Learn to control yourself." The handwriting was unmistakably Daniel's. My breath caught. How long has he been writing these? I confronted him that night under the dim glow of our hallway light. "Did you write this?" I held up the note. His face hardened. "It was for me," he said, grabbing it back. "I was venting. It's not meant for you." He crumpled it and tossed it aside. When I reached to pick it up, he stepped back. "Stop making mountains out of molehills." I stood frozen, the crumpled paper at my feet. Is this my fault? I convinced myself it was blown out of proportion. I cleaned up the mess and smiled at him as if nothing had happened. But every time I passed the nursery, I held my breath. I began to second-guess everything I did. I rewrote emails multiple times before sending them. I avoided sharing my feelings, afraid he'd dismiss them again. I smiled when he criticized my cooking, nodded when he suggested I get more rest, implying I was too tired to think straight. I am too tired. My world narrowed to the careful choreography of pleasing him. I remember one afternoon when Willow refused to nap. I cradled her in my arms, humming until she drifted off. When Daniel came in, I looked up gratefully. Instead of comfort, I felt the weight of his gaze. "You're spoiling her," he said softly. "She needs boundaries." His words felt like a slap. How dare he? I held Willow tighter, heart hammering as she whimpered in her sleep. Then he touched my arm, voice gentle. "I only want what's best." I let him guide us both to the couch, though every fiber of me told me to pull away. I can't do this alone. I clutched the edges of his shirt as if it were a lifeline, silent tears staining my lashes. I began to isolate myself. I declined my sister's invitations, canceled brunch with friends, and skipped therapy sessions I once found soothing. I told myself it was for my family, for my daughter. I'll fix this. Yet each night, I lay awake listening to the faint click of his office door closing downstairs. I imagined him pacing, plotting the next subtle barb. I documented every incident in my journal, though I hid it under a false bottom in my bedside drawer. One day, I'll need this. The pages filled with shaky handwriting and underlined phrases. Emotional, irrational, unstable. I wondered if he'd planted those words himself. Am I losing my mind? Then, on a rainy Thursday morning, I discovered a new twist. My credit card statement flagged charges I didn't recognize, late fees, small withdrawals at ATMs I'd never visited. I called the bank, blaming a clerical error. When Daniel saw the statement, he shrugged. "Maybe you forgot," he said, concern laced with pity. "He thinks I'm that absent-minded?" I stared at him across the kitchen island, lightning flashing through the window. My hands trembled as I held the paper. He's erasing me. My chest tightened, and I realized these manipulations weren't accidental. They were strategic. Every doubt he seeded, every gaslighted moment, had a purpose. And then I found an envelope in my own handwriting, addressed to me, dated weeks ago, with excerpts from my journal transcribed in perfect script. I unfolded it with shaking fingers and read the first line. I can't trust what I feel anymore. My breath hitched. Who wrote this? I looked up to find Daniel standing in the doorway, expression unreadable. My heart pounded. What game is he playing? And then silence. What would happen next? I froze as the envelope slipped from my fingers, the rain's rhythm on the window punctuating every heartbeat. How deep does this go? I watched Daniel's silhouette in the doorway, backlit by the hallway light. The courtroom-like hush of our home pressed in. Then I realized I couldn't ignore it any longer. I dashed to my bedside drawer and yanked out my hidden journal. I flipped to the page dated 2 weeks earlier, where I had written, I feel lost. I don't know what to trust. My handwriting blurred with tears. He used my own fears against me. I clutched the leather cover and ran down our hallway, journal, pressed to my chest like a shield. I burst into the nursery, where Willow lay cocooned in blankets, her breath soft and even. I sank to the floor beside her crib, the late afternoon light casting long shadows across the room. Then I let the tears come. I can't protect her if I can't protect myself. I clambered back to the kitchen, journal in hand, as Daniel closed. The distance. His footsteps echoed. Slow. Measured. I held up the envelope and the transcribed page. Who are you? I demanded, voice cracking. I'm so tired of lies. I saw the flicker of something in his eyes. Remorse? Fear? Or another mask? He began, throat tight. He lifted a hand, as if to reach for me, but hesitated. Why am I the only one speaking? I pressed on. These are my words, your handwriting, your manipulations. Why? My voice hitched, like porcelain cracking. I could almost hear the judge's gavel in my mind. The fluorescent glare of the courtroom replaced by the kitchen's warm bulbs. Then, Daniel sighed, shoulders slumping. He sank into the chair at the island as if conceding a point. He's going to apologize, right? I demanded the truth. I paced, each step a drumbeat of tension. My heart pounded so loudly I thought it might burst through my ribs. Then, Daniel spoke. I was scared. His voice was low. I thought you were slipping away. I stopped, journal clutched to my chest, and stared at him, scared. I remembered the confident partner I married, the man who built our life together. How did fear become weaponized? He ran a hand through his hair. When you started stretching yourself thin, I felt powerless. I loved you, but I couldn't reach you. He gestured toward my open diary. I was trying to show you what you were becoming. His words tumbled out like urgent pleas. Urgent pleas? I looked at the envelope again. The page ended with, "I don't know if he still loves me." I whispered. "That's what you wanted me to believe." I paced again, tears burning at my eyes. This is my breaking point. I felt every emotion, anger, betrayal, sorrow, collide in my chest. Then, Willow's soft cry from the monitor broke the moment. I froze. My daughter. I ran back to her room, scooped her into my arms, and cradled her close, her tiny hand curled around my finger. Then, I realized our family was at stake. I turned to Daniel with renewed conviction. "We need help," I said, voice trembling yet firm. "For us. For her." My whisper carried the weight of a verdict. I set Willow on the couch and returned to the island. The journal slid open, revealing pages marked with red circles around phrases, emotionally unstable, forgetful, unreliable. I slammed a hand on the table. "You didn't protect me. You weaponized my pain." My knuckles rapped like a judge calling order. "This is it." Daniel's face drained of color. The hum of the fridge and the distant roll of thunder seemed deafening. He bowed his head. "I lost sight of us," he admitted. "I let my fear decide how to love you." His shoulders shook. "Is this real remorse?" I dropped to my knees, journal in hand, tears soaking the pages. "I don't know if I can trust you," I whispered. My voice cracked with the vulnerability I'd buried for months. The word trust reverberated in the room. Trust, the foundation we shattered. Then, Daniel reached out, hesitated, and touched my shoulder with a tentative hand. His skin was cold against mine. "I'll do anything," he promised. "Counseling, honesty audits, team meetings, whatever it takes." His words tumbled out as a vow rather than a threat. Is this a plea or another control tactic? I looked at the open journal, at Willow asleep on the couch, at the man I once believed was my partner. The storm outside raged, lightning illuminating my doubt. I stand at a crossroads. My fingers trace the journal's worn spine. This is my crisis moment, my breaking point. And then, the house grew silent, suspended between what was and what could be. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and spoke the words that would change everything. "We go to therapy, together, or this ends." My voice was calm, layered with resolve. Then, Daniel nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. And then, I exhaled, as if releasing all the fear I'd held inside. This is where the real fight begins. I closed the journal, readying myself for the next battle. A battle for truth. A battle for love. A battle I would no longer fight alone. What happens next? I sat in that sterile courtroom and watched as my sister, Anna, rose with trembling hands. Then, she handed the bailiff a flash drive. My breath caught. "What's on there?" The prosecutor frowned as the judge nodded. Then, the file played. Raw footage from our home's nanny-cam, showing Daniel placing those transcribed pages into the envelope, smiling as if proud of himself. I felt my vision blur. He fabricated my fears. I pressed my palms into the wooden bench, nails digging into the grain. And then, the footage cut to Daniel rifling through my credit card statements, pocketing receipts before slipping them back. The gallery murmured. He gaslit me in front of our daughter. My heart hammered, each beat louder than the shuffling of papers. Then, Anna's voice broke through. He wanted you to believe you were unfit to win sole custody. She held up my actual journal, untouched, its pages inked with raw emotion, proof that the manipulations were his, not mine. My lawyer stood, hand on my shoulder, and said, "Your Honor, we submit this as evidence of sustained gaslighting and deceit." I locked eyes with Daniel, his confident mask cracked, replaced by desperation. The judge leaned forward, gavel poised. What will he decide? I watched the judge's gavel descend like the final beat of a symphony. "The court finds in favor of Mrs. Harris," he declared. Then, relief washed over me in a guttural rush. I felt my knees go weak, and tears I'd fought for months finally spilled free. I clutched Willow to my chest as the bailiff escorted Daniel away. The courtroom light seemed warmer now, as if acknowledging my victory. My lawyer whispered, "You did it. I did it." I exhaled the weight of doubt that had anchored me for so long. Then, I rose, the jury's nods of support echoing in my ears. I stepped outside, sunlight breaking through clouds, and felt the world expand around me again. I am whole. I learned that truth doesn't need permission to be heard. I trust my voice. I learned that love, when genuine, never weaponizes fear. I choose honesty. And I learned that no one, no matter how close, has the right to rewrite your story. I reclaim mine. If you've ever felt unheard or doubted, know that your words matter. Share your story in the comments below. Like this video if you believe in standing up for the truth. And subscribe for more confessional courtroom dramas that remind us, your voice is your power. I rose from the courtroom bench with my hand pressed to my heart. The weight I carried finally lifted. I looked down at Willow's sleeping form and felt a swell of fierce, unbreakable love. I stepped into the bright hallway, each footstep echoing my renewed strength. This is my truth reclaimed. If my story resonated with you, if you've ever felt silenced or gaslit, please tap the like button to show your support. Drop a comment sharing your own journey, or simply to remind someone that they're not alone. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a confession that proves your voice is your power.